In the winter of 1944, as snow covered the forests of the Ardennes, the war in Europe appeared to be entering its final phase. Allied forces had liberated much of France. American armies were advancing steadily toward Germany, and the balance of power seemed firmly decided. Yet beneath this apparent momentum, the German High Command was preparing a final, desperate gamble. It would become known as the Battle of the Bulge, the largest and most costly battle ever fought by the United States Army during the Second World War. At the heart of this offensive was an unconventional plan that relied not on firepower alone, but on deception, confusion, and psychological disruption. The operation was called Operation Greif, and it was entrusted to one of Germany's most audacious special operations commanders, Otto Skorzeny. Its objective was simple in concept but complex in execution. Infiltrate American lines by disguising German commandos as U.S. soldiers, sow chaos behind the front, and slow the Allied response at a critical moment. The origins of Operation Greif can be traced back to October 1944, when Adolf Hitler summoned Skorzeny to his headquarters at Rastenburg. Hitler believed that the Western Allies, particularly the Americans, relied too heavily on rigid command structures and predictable logistics. By exploiting this perceived weakness, he hoped to disrupt communications, misdirect troop movements, and buy precious time for his counteroffensive in the Ardennes. Skorzeny was tasked with forming a special unit capable of operating behind enemy lines. This unit would later be designated Panzer Brigade 150. Its soldiers were carefully selected for their language skills, familiarity with American customs, and willingness to undertake extremely risky missions. At the training grounds in Grafenwöhr, these men studied American military procedures, slang, road signs, and even casual behavior. Captured U.S. uniforms, weapons, and vehicles were gathered to enhance the illusion. Despite the ambition of the plan, Operation Greif faced serious limitations from the start. There were not enough fluent English speakers, nor sufficient quantities of American equipment to fully equip the unit. As a result, only a small number of commandos would actually operate in full disguise. Nevertheless, even a limited infiltration could have an outsized psychological impact. When the German offensive began in mid-December 1944, Allied forces were initially caught off guard by the scale and intensity of the attack. American units bore the brunt of the fighting, holding defensive positions under harsh winter conditions. Amid this chaos, reports began to circulate of enemy soldiers wearing American uniforms, directing traffic, altering signposts, and spreading false information. The effect was immediate. Suspicion spread rapidly through American rear areas. Military police were placed on high alert, checkpoints multiplied, and even routine movements became subject to scrutiny. In an environment where trust was essential, uncertainty became a weapon. To counter the threat, American MPs improvised a uniquely effective solution. They began questioning soldiers at checkpoints using cultural knowledge rather than military credentials. Questions about baseball teams, state capitals, and Hollywood stars became tools of counterintelligence. Simple mistakes, unfamiliar accents, or hesitation could reveal an infiltrator. In some cases, even genuine American soldiers found themselves detained temporarily for failing to answer correctly. The level of tension was such that several high-ranking officers, including General Omar Bradley and General Bruce Clark, were briefly stopped and questioned. While these incidents caused inconvenience, they also demonstrated the seriousness with which the U.S. Army addressed the threat. Discipline, adaptability, and decentralized decision-making allowed American forces to respond quickly without collapsing into paranoia. Not all infiltrators succeeded. Near Isle, Belgium, several German commandos, including Manfred Pernass, Günther Billing, and Wilhelm Schmidt, were captured after raising suspicion. Their interrogations confirmed the existence of Operation Greif and reinforced Allied countermeasures. The operation's tactical impact began to diminish, but its psychological effects lingered. Despite these disruptions, the broader American response to the Battle of the Bulge remained resilient. Nowhere was this more evident than at Bastogne, where surrounded U.S. forces refused to surrender. When German envoys demanded capitulation, General Anthony McAuliffe famously replied with a single word, "nuts." The response became emblematic of American resolve and quickly spread through Allied ranks as a symbol of defiance. Operation Greif ultimately failed to achieve its primary objectives. The commandos were unable to seize the bridges over the Meuse River, and the confusion they generated did not halt the Allied advance. Yet the operation did create one of the most unusual security crises of the war, forcing the U.S. Army to confront an enemy that blurred the line between combat and deception. On December 23, 1944, 17 captured German commandos were executed near Henri-Chapelle after being tried for operating in enemy uniforms. They were later buried at Lommel Cemetery. The incident underscored the seriousness of the legal and ethical issues raised by Operation Greif, particularly violations of established laws of war. After the war, Otto Skorzeny was tried at Dachau in 1947 on charges related to the use of enemy uniforms. During the trial, testimony from former Allied Special Operations officers, including FFE Yo Thomas, contributed to Skorzeny's acquittal. The court concluded that while deception was used, it did not meet the threshold for criminal liability under existing conventions. The trial would later influence discussions on special operations doctrine and military law. In hindsight, Operation Greif stands as a striking example of psychological warfare during World War II. While tactically limited, it exposed vulnerabilities inherent in large-scale operations and demonstrated how fear and uncertainty could briefly disrupt even the most powerful armies. Yet it also highlighted the strengths of the American military system. Flexibility, rapid adaptation, and strong leadership prevented a localized threat from becoming a strategic disaster. The Battle of the Bulge would ultimately end in Allied victory, but at great cost. More than 200,000 American troops were involved, and approximately 80,000 became casualties, making it the largest and bloodiest battle ever fought by the United States Army. Despite Hitler's final gamble, the offensive exhausted Germany's remaining reserves and accelerated the end of the war in Europe. Operation Greif did not change the outcome of the conflict, but it left a lasting impression on military history. It revealed the power of deception, the importance of cultural knowledge in warfare, and the necessity of adaptability under pressure. Above all, it showed that even in moments of surprise and confusion, the Allied forces, led by American resilience and organization, retained the capacity to recover, respond, and prevail. In the frozen forests of the Ardennes, amid fear, suspicion, and uncertainty, reality once again asserted itself. The final outcome of the war was not decided by disguises or deception, but by endurance, coordination, and overwhelming Allied strength. And in December 1944, that strength belonged firmly to the United States and its allies.